He wasn't supposed to come home that early. The bus drops him 2 blocks from Maple Street just after sunrise, the kind of quiet hour when the world hasn't decided what it wants to be yet. The air carries a faint chill, maybe 50 degrees, brushing against his skin like a memory he can't quite place. Ethan Cole steps down with one duffel bag slung over his shoulder, boots hitting the pavement with a weight that feels heavier than it should. Beside him, Rex lands softly, a 6-year-old German shepherd with a sable coat that catches the pale light, his ears already angled forward, alert to something Ethan hasn't noticed yet. The neighborhood looks the same. White fences, trimmed lawns, the old oak tree still leaning slightly over the sidewalk like it's been waiting. But something feels off. Not wrong in a way you can name. Just off. Ethan exhales slowly and starts walking. Each step closer to the house tightens something in his chest. He hasn't been back in almost 3 years. Not since the last deployment stretched longer than it was supposed to. Not since the calls got shorter. Not since his mother's voice started sounding more tired, more distant, like she was holding something back. He told himself it was just age. Just time. Rex moves ahead of him, then slows. Then stops. That's the first sign. Rex never hesitates at a doorway. Not at a checkpoint. Not in a storm. But now, standing 10 feet from the front porch, he lowers his head slightly and lets out a low, uncertain breath. Ethan notices. "What is it, buddy?" he murmurs, but Rex doesn't answer the way he usually does. No wag. No eager step forward. Just stillness. The house sits there quiet. Too quiet. No porch light. No curtains shifting. No sound of dishes or the soft hum of the radio his mother always kept on in the mornings. The mailbox is full. Not overflowing, but full enough to mean no one's touched it in a while. Ethan's jaw tightens. He steps onto the walkway, gravel crunching under his boots, louder than it should be in the silence. The closer he gets, the more the air changes. There's a faint smell. Not strong. Just enough to notice if you're paying attention. Something stale. Something closed off. He reaches the front door and pauses. His hand hovers over the handle. For a second, he remembers every time she opened this door before he even knocked. Every time she said his name like it was something worth waiting for. He turns the handle. It's unlocked. The door creaks open slowly, the sound stretching into the quiet like it doesn't belong there anymore. Inside, the house is dim. Curtains drawn. Dust hanging in the air where sunlight tries to push through. Furniture still in place, but something about it feels untouched. Like time stopped, but not in a peaceful way. Rex doesn't follow him in. Instead, the dog steps back, then turns, then walks away from the door. Ethan frowns. Rex. But the dog is already moving along the side of the house, body tense now, nose low, tracking something invisible. Ethan glances back into the empty living room, then follows. Around the side yard, the grass is uneven, patches of dirt showing where something's been disturbed. Rex moves faster, then stops near the back of the house. He starts pawing at the ground near a small, weathered door Ethan barely remembers. A storage space. Maybe. Or something that used to be. The wood is worn. The handle rusted. And for a moment, everything goes still again. Ethan steps closer, heart pounding now in a way that feels too loud for the morning. Rex lets out a low sound, not quite a growl, not quite a whine. Something in between. Something that says this isn't right. Ethan reaches for the handle. And hesitates. Because suddenly, he knows. Whatever is behind that door is the reason the house felt wrong. Before we begin, tell me where are witching from. Drop your country in the comments. I'd love to see how far this story travels. Ethan does not open the door right away. His hand rests against the cold metal handle, feeling the roughness of rust under his fingers, as if time itself had settled there and refused to move. Rex shifts beside him, pacing once, then stopping again, his body angled toward the door, muscles tight beneath his coat. The morning air feels thinner now, harder to breathe. Ethan exhales slowly, steadying himself the way he learned to before stepping into unknown territory. Then he turns the handle. The door resists at first, stuck from disuse, then gives with a soft crack that echoes louder than it should. A faint smell slips out. Not sharp, not unbearable, just quiet neglect. The kind that builds over days, then weeks, then something longer. Ethan pushes the door open a few inches, enough to let light slip inside. It lands on a narrow space, barely more than a storage room. Old shelves line the walls, most of them empty, a few holding forgotten boxes coated in dust. But that is not what stops him. It is the shape in the corner. Small, still, wrapped in a thin blanket that looks too light for the chill in the air. For a second, his mind refuses to understand what he is seeing. It tries to turn it into something else. A pile of clothes. A shadow. Anything but what it is. Rex moves first. The dog steps forward carefully, each paw placed with quiet precision, his head lowering as he approaches the corner. A soft sound leaves his throat. Not a bark, not a growl, something gentler, something almost like recognition. The shape stirs. Just slightly. A breath. Ethan feels something inside his chest tighten, so sharply it almost steals his balance. He steps forward, slower now, every movement deliberate, as if moving too fast might break whatever fragile reality he has stepped into. Mom. The word comes out barely above a whisper. The figure shifts again. The blanket slips just enough for light to touch a face. Pale. Thinner than he remembers. Eyes closed at first, then fluttering open with the slow uncertainty of someone waking from a long, restless sleep. Margaret Cole blinks against the light, her gaze unfocused, drifting until it lands on him. For a moment, there is no recognition, just confusion. Then something changes. A flicker, a memory finding its way back. Her lips part slightly. Ethan. His name sounds fragile in her voice, like it has not been used in a long time. Ethan drops to his knees without thinking, the rough floor pressing through his jeans, but he does not feel it. He reaches for her, hesitating only for a fraction of a second, as if afraid she might disappear if he touches her. But she does not. She is real, warm, though faintly, too light when he steadies her shoulders. Rex settles beside her, pressing close, his body curved protectively, his head resting near her hand. Margaret's fingers twitch, then slowly lift, brushing against the thick fur as if confirming something she already knows. I knew he would bring you back, she murmurs softly, her voice uneven but certain. Ethan swallows hard, his throat tightening. What happened? He asks, but the question feels too small for what he is seeing. She does not answer right away. Her eyes move past him, toward the open door, toward the sliver of morning light cutting through the darkness. They said you were not coming, she whispers. They said it was better this way. Ethan's brow furrows, confusion mixing with something deeper, something colder. Who said that? Margaret's gaze lowers, her fingers tightening slightly in Rex's fur. Someone you trusted, she says quietly. The words land heavier than anything else in the room. Ethan feels it settle in his chest, not as anger yet, but as something sharper. A realization beginning to form. Around them, the small space remains still. Dust floating in the beam of light. The faint sound of wind moving through the trees outside. Everything ordinary. Everything wrong. Ethan looks back at his mother, really looks this time, at the way she has been left here, hidden just out of sight, as if she no longer belonged in her own home. His jaw tightens, but his voice stays low, steady. You are not staying here, he says. Not loud. Not forceful. Just certain. Rex lifts his head slightly, ears forward, as if he understands. Margaret closes her eyes for a brief moment, not in fear, but in something that feels closer to relief. And in that quiet space, with the door still open and the morning finally reaching inside, Ethan realizes this is not just about coming home. This is about uncovering what was taken, what was hidden, and who decided she no longer mattered. The sunlight grows stronger outside, but inside that small room, time still feels suspended, like the world forgot this corner existed. Ethan moves carefully, one arm supporting his mother as she tries to sit up, her movements slow, uncertain, like her body is remembering how to belong again. The blanket slips from her shoulders, and he notices how light she feels, how the weight of her presence has somehow been reduced without him knowing. Rex stays close, never leaving her side, his amber eyes shifting between Ethan and Margaret, as if guarding both of them at once. Easy, Ethan murmurs, his voice softer now, steadier, the kind of tone he used when calming rookies in the field, except this time it carries something deeper, something personal. Margaret nods faintly, her gaze lingering on his face, studying him like she is trying to make sure he is not just a memory playing tricks on her. You came back sooner, she says quietly. Ethan hesitates for a fraction of a second. Yeah, he replies. I did. He does not explain why. Not yet. Something tells him the timing matters more than he understands. He helps her to her feet, feeling the slight tremor in her legs, the hesitation in every step. When they reach the doorway, she pauses, her eyes adjusting to the brightness outside. The morning has fully arrived now, lights spilling across the yard, touching the worn grass, the peeling paint, the edges of a home that has been holding its breath. Margaret steps into it slowly, like someone crossing from one world into another. She looks around, her expression shifting, not in surprise, but in recognition of what has changed. They stopped coming by, she says after a moment, her voice distant, like she is piecing together something she has been trying not to think about. Ethan watches her carefully. Who? He asks again, more firmly this time. She does not answer directly. Instead, she gestures faintly toward the house. There were papers, she says. They said I signed them. Said it was better, that I would not have to worry anymore. Ethan's jaw tightens slightly. Did you? He asks. Margaret shakes her head slowly. I do not remember, she admits. Things got confusing. They told me you agreed. That you wanted me somewhere safer. The words settle between them, heavier than the silence before. Ethan feels something shift inside him, something that was uncertain now beginning to take shape. Rex suddenly lifts his head, ears sharp, attention snapping toward the back fence. His body stiffens, not in fear, but in recognition. Ethan notices immediately. What is it? He asks under his breath. Rex moves a few steps forward, nose low, catching a scent carried by the morning breeze. He stops near the edge of the yard, staring toward the neighboring house. A car sits in the driveway. Clean. Recently used. Out of place against the quiet stillness of everything else. Ethan follows his gaze. There is nothing obviously wrong about it. But Rex does not react without reason. He never has. Margaret watches them both, her eyes narrowing slightly, as if something in her memory is trying to surface. That car, she whispers. Ethan turns to her. You know it. She nods faintly, uncertainty flickering across her face. He used to come by, she says. Said he was helping. Said he knew you. Ethan's breath slows, controlled, but deliberate. Did he give you a name? Margaret hesitates, her hand resting lightly against Rex's back as if grounding herself. Daniel, she says finally. Daniel Hayes. The name lands with a quiet weight. Not unfamiliar. Not entirely unexpected. Ethan looks back at the car, then at Rex, whose eyes remain locked in that direction, unwavering. The pieces are not fully clear yet, but they are no longer scattered. They are beginning to connect. And standing there in the morning light, with his mother beside him and his dog already sensing what he cannot yet see, Ethan realizes the truth was never far away. It was simply waiting for him to come home and find it. The name lingers in the air longer than it should, like it already knows it does not belong there. Ethan does not repeat it. He does not need to. Daniel Hayes. It settles somewhere deep, not as a memory, but as a recognition that has been waiting quietly beneath the surface. Rex lets out a low breath, his focus never leaving the house next door, the car sitting in the driveway like it has every right to be there. But something about it feels staged. Too clean. Too present in a place that otherwise feels forgotten. Ethan shifts his weight slightly, his arms still steady around his. Mother, can you walk? He asks gently. Margaret nods, though her strength is uncertain. I can try, she says. That is enough. Ethan guides her slowly toward the back steps, each movement careful, measured, as if rebuilding something that was taken piece by piece. Rex stays close, but his attention splits now, half on them, half on the neighboring yard, like a silent guard watching two worlds at once. The house behind them stands quiet, holding its secrets in the walls, in the dust, in the silence that should never have been there. Ethan does not look back. Not yet. There will be time for that. They reach the small patio, where an old wooden chair sits angled toward the morning sun. Margaret lowers herself into it with a quiet exhale, her hands resting on her lap, as if she is relearning what it means to sit without fear of being forgotten. Ethan kneels beside her, just for a moment, his gaze steady. You are safe here, he says. Not loud, not dramatic, just certain. She studies him, her eyes softening with something that has been missing. I knew you would come, she whispers. Ethan nods once, but his attention is already shifting. Because Rex has moved. The dog steps forward, crossing the edge of the yard now, his nose low, tracing something invisible but undeniable. His pace is slow, deliberate, the kind of tracking Ethan has seen in places where mistakes cost more than just time. "Stay here," Ethan tells his mother quietly. She nods, though her eyes follow him with quiet concern. Ethan rises and follows Rex, each step bringing him closer to the boundary between what he knows and what he does not yet understand. The fence between the properties is low, more symbolic than protective. Rex pauses beside it, then looks back at Ethan briefly, as if waiting for permission. Ethan gives a small nod. That is all it takes. Rex steps through the open gap, where the wood has warped over time, slipping into the neighboring yard without hesitation. Ethan follows, his movements calm, controlled, but there is a shift now in the air around him. The quiet is no longer empty. It feels watched. The house next door looks maintained, but not lived in. Curtains drawn just enough to suggest presence without revealing anything. The car sits still, engine cold, but recently driven. Details, small things, but they add up. Rex moves toward the side of the house, then stops near a window. His posture tightens. His head lifts slightly, nostrils flaring as he catches something stronger now. A scent that lingers. Familiar. Ethan steps closer, his gaze scanning the area, taking in everything without rushing. A stack of mail rests near the door. Not addressed to this house. Different names. Different dates. Pieces of something that does not quite fit. Rex lets out a soft, focused sound, then shifts his attention to the ground near the back entrance. He paused lightly once, then again, not digging, just indicating. Ethan crouches, his fingers brushing against the surface. The dirt is disturbed. Recently. Not by animals. By someone who knew exactly what they were doing. Ethan straightens slowly, his eyes lifting toward the house, toward the door that stands closed but no longer feels like a barrier. Behind him, the morning continues as if nothing has changed. But everything has. Because now, the silence is no longer empty. It is holding something back. And Ethan knows, with a certainty that settles deep and steady, that whatever Daniel Hayes started here was never meant to be found. Not like this. Not by him. Not with Rex already listening to the truth beneath the surface. The ground tells a story long before any words are spoken. Ethan remains still for a moment, letting the silence settle, letting his eyes adjust not to the light, but to the details most people would overlook. Rex does not move away. The dog stays fixed at the same spot, his focus unwavering, as if whatever lies beneath the surface is speaking directly to him. Ethan lowers himself again, slower this time, his fingers brushing across the disturbed dirt with more intention. It is not random, not wind, not weather. Someone has been here, recently enough that the earth has not had time to forget. He presses his palm lightly against it, feeling the slight difference in texture, the looseness beneath the top layer. Rex shifts closer, his breath steady, watching Ethan now instead of the ground, as if waiting for him to understand what he already knows. Ethan exhales quietly. All right. He murmurs, more to himself than to the dog. He moves his hand again, clearing just enough of the surface to reveal something beneath. Not buried deep, just hidden. The edge of something flat. Smooth. Not natural. His fingers trace along it carefully until the shape becomes clearer. A small metal latch, attached to a panel set into the ground. Ethan pauses. His gaze lifts briefly toward the house, toward the windows that remain still and unreadable. No movement, no sound, just the same quiet that now feels intentional. He looks back down. The latch is old, but not forgotten. Maintained just enough to function. He reaches for it, then stops. Not out of fear, out of instinct. The same instinct that has kept him alive in places where rushing meant losing control. Rex leans in slightly, his ears forward, his body aligned with Ethan's, as if whatever happens next belongs to both of them. Ethan grips the latch and pulls. It resists for a second, then releases with a soft, hollow sound. The panel lifts just enough to reveal darkness beneath. A space. Small, hidden, deliberate. Ethan does not open it fully. Not yet. Instead, he leans closer, letting the faint light reach inside. There are no immediate answers. Just shapes. Shadows. But one thing is clear. This was not an accident. This was planned. Rex lets out a low breath, then shifts his attention again, not to the panel, but back toward the house, toward the door. Ethan follows his gaze, and then he hears it. Not loud, not obvious, just a faint sound from inside the house. A step, or maybe the suggestion of one. Enough to confirm what the silence had been hiding all along. Someone is there. Ethan lowers the panel quietly, his movements controlled, leaving everything as it was. No sudden changes. No signs that anything has been discovered. He stands slowly, brushing the dirt from his hands, his expression calm, but his focus sharper now. Rex moves to his side immediately, posture steady, ready. Ethan does not look surprised. He does not call out. He does not rush forward. Instead, he takes one step back, creating space, giving himself a clearer view of the house, the door, the windows that now feel less like barriers and more like eyes watching from the inside. His breathing remains even, measured, the way it always does before something shifts. Because this is no longer just about finding answers. It is about understanding who thought they could hide them. Ethan glances once toward the fence, toward the yard where his mother sits in the sunlight, unaware of how close the truth has been all along. Then he looks back at the house, and for the first time since he arrived, his voice breaks the silence, quiet but certain. "Daniel," he says, not as a question, not as a call, but as a statement. The name does not echo. It does not need to. Because inside that house, whoever is listening already knows this moment was coming. And now, so does Ethan. The name settles into the walls like it belongs there, like it has been spoken before in quieter tones, in moments Ethan was never meant to hear. For a few seconds, nothing happens. The house remains still, the drawn curtains unmoving, the door closed just enough to feel deliberate. Rex stands beside Ethan, his body aligned, his presence steady, but there is a tension in him now, a readiness that does not come from fear, but from certainty. He knows someone is inside. Ethan does not move forward right away. He waits. Not long. Just enough. The kind of pause that gives truth a chance to reveal itself without being forced. Then, slowly, the door opens. Not wide. Just a few inches. A shadow appears first, then a figure stepping into the light with measured calm, as if this moment has been rehearsed. Daniel Hayes looks older than Ethan remembers. Not by years, but by something else. His posture is controlled, his expression composed, the kind of calm that tries to pass for confidence. He stands there for a moment, taking in the scene, Ethan, Rex, the yard, the distance between them. "You came back," Daniel says, his voice even, almost neutral, like this is just an inconvenience in an otherwise orderly plan. Ethan does not answer immediately. His eyes stay on Daniel, steady, unreadable. Rex shifts slightly, positioning himself half a step forward, not aggressive, just present, a quiet line drawn in the space between them. "You told her I was not," Ethan says finally. His voice is low, controlled, carrying more weight in its restraint than any raised tone could. Daniel exhales faintly, glancing past Ethan toward the fence, toward the yard where Margaret sits, small in the morning light. "She needed stability," he replies. "You were gone. No one knew when you were coming back." Ethan's jaw tightens just slightly. That does not explain why she was out there. Daniel's gaze flickers for a fraction of a second, then steadies again. "It was temporary," he says. "She was confused. She kept wandering. It was safer to keep her somewhere contained." The words land flat. Too clean. Too practiced. Ethan does not step closer. He does not raise his voice. He just looks at him, letting the silence stretch long enough for the truth to feel exposed. Rex lets out a quiet breath, his eyes never leaving Daniel, as if he can hear what is not being said. "You moved the property," Ethan says, not asking. Daniel hesitates this time. Barely noticeable, but enough. "It was necessary," he replies. "Taxes, upkeep, legal complications. She could not manage it." Ethan tilts his head slightly, studying him. "And you could." Daniel does not answer that directly. Instead, he shifts his weight, trying to regain control of the conversation. "Look," he says, his tone softening just enough to sound reasonable. "I was helping. Someone had to. You were not here." The sentence hangs there, offered like an explanation, but it feels more like an excuse that has been repeated too many times. Ethan glances once toward the ground near the side of the house, toward the place where the hidden panel rests beneath the dirt. Then back to Daniel. "You forgot one thing," Ethan says quietly. Daniel's expression tightens slightly. "What is that?" Ethan's voice does not change. She remembers more than you thought. Behind him, the faint sound of movement carries from the yard. Margaret shifting in the chair. Rex's ears flick for a moment, acknowledging it, then return to Daniel. The silence between the two men deepens, no longer uncertain, but defined. This is not about confusion, not about misunderstanding. It is about choices. And Daniel knows it. Ethan takes one slow step forward, closing just enough distance to make the moment real. Not threatening, not aggressive, just undeniable. You told her I was not coming back, Ethan says again, his voice steady. But you stayed. Daniel does not respond right away. Because now, there is nothing left to adjust, nothing left to soften. The truth has already stepped into the light. And for the first time since the door opened, the calm in his expression begins to fracture, not dramatically, but enough to show what has been hiding underneath. Not fear. Not yet. Just the realization that whatever control he thought he had is no longer his to keep. The silence between them does not break. It settles deeper, heavier, like something final has already been decided without either of them saying it out loud. Daniel shifts his stance slightly, not stepping back, but no longer as steady as before, his composure thinning in ways he cannot fully hide. Ethan watches him the same way he has watched uncertain ground before, not with anger, but with patience, with the kind of focus that waits for truth to reveal itself completely. Rex remains still, his presence unwavering, his gaze fixed on Daniel, as if measuring something beyond words. You think you understand what happened here, Daniel says after a moment, his voice quieter now, less certain, as if searching for control that is no longer there. Ethan does not interrupt. He lets him speak. She could not keep up with things, Daniel continues. The bills, the maintenance, the legal side of it. Someone had to step in. His words come more quickly now, like they have been rehearsed too many times. I made sure everything stayed in order. I made sure nothing fell apart. Ethan tilts his head slightly, his expression unchanged. You moved her out of her own house, he says, his voice calm, almost neutral. Daniel exhales, a faint frustration breaking through. I moved her somewhere she would not hurt herself, he replies. She was not thinking clearly. She signed the documents. It was legal. The word legal lingers, as if it is meant to settle everything. But it does not. Ethan glances toward the house again, toward the closed door, toward the space beneath the ground where something was hidden instead of handled. Legal is not the same as right, he says quietly. Daniel's jaw tightens. You were not here, he repeats, this time with less certainty and more insistence, like the argument is losing its weight the more it is used. Ethan nods once. No, he agrees. I was not. The admission lands differently than expected, not as weakness, but as clarity. But I am now. The words do not carry anger. They carry presence. Finality. Behind them, a faint breeze moves through the yard, stirring the leaves, brushing against the stillness that has held everything in place. Rex shifts slightly, his ears flicking toward the fence again, where Margaret remains, quiet but aware, her gaze fixed on the two men, as if she understands more than either of them expected. Daniel follows that movement, his eyes landing briefly on her, then back to Ethan. Something changes in his expression then, something more complicated than defense. You do not know how hard it was, he says, softer now, almost trying to justify something to himself. Watching her forget things. Watching her lose track of what was real. I did what I thought was necessary. Ethan studies him for a long moment. There is no immediate response. Just a quiet evaluation, a weighing of what has been said against what has been seen. Then Ethan speaks again, his voice steady, grounded. You decided for her, he says. Without telling me. Without giving her a choice. Daniel opens his mouth to respond, then stops. Because there is no simple answer to that. The truth sits between them now, fully visible, no longer hidden behind careful words or controlled explanations. Rex lets out a soft breath, the sound low and steady, like a reminder that not everything needs to be said to be understood. Ethan takes another step forward, closing the distance just enough to make the moment undeniable, but not threatening. You thought no one would come back for her, he says quietly. Daniel does not deny it. He does not confirm it either. But the silence, that follows is enough. It tells the truth more clearly than anything else could. And in that silence, the balance shifts completely. Not with force, not with confrontation, but with something quieter, something stronger. The kind of truth that does not need to raise its voice to be heard. And standing there in the morning light, with Rex at his side and his mother watching from just beyond the fence, Ethan understands that this is not about proving anything anymore. It is about restoring what should never have been taken in the first place. The moment does not explode. It settles, quietly, like something long unbalanced has finally found its center again. Daniel looks at Ethan, then past him, toward the yard where Margaret sits in the morning light, her hands folded loosely in her lap, her posture fragile but no longer hidden. For the first time, there is no argument left in his expression. No more carefully measured words waiting to be used. Just the weight of what is already understood. Ethan does not press further. He does not need to. The truth has already stepped forward, and it is not going back. Rex shifts beside him, the tension in his body easing slightly, as if he senses that whatever danger existed here was never about violence, but about something quieter, something colder. Neglect, silence, absence, the kind of harm that does not leave marks, but leaves people behind. Ethan turns his head slightly, glancing once more at the house, then back to Daniel. "You are going to fix this," he says, his voice calm, steady, leaving no room for interpretation. Daniel exhales slowly, his shoulders lowering just a fraction, as if the resistance he had been holding on to is finally giving way. "It is already complicated," he says, not as a defense, but as a statement of what he now has to face. Ethan nods once. "Then you will start there." There is no thread in his tone, no demand for immediate answers, just a clear line drawn between what was done and what will be made right. Daniel looks down briefly, then back up, his gaze no longer trying to hold control, but searching for something else, perhaps understanding, perhaps a way forward that does not undo him. "Completely. I did not think you would come back this soon," he admits quietly. Ethan meets his eyes. "You should have." The words are not harsh. They are not loud, but they land with a finality that settles deeper than anything else that has been said. For a moment, the two men stand there, not as opponents, not as enemies, but as people standing on opposite sides of a choice that has already been made. Then Ethan steps back, not retreating, just creating space. Rex follows immediately, his body turning with Ethan's, his focus shifting away from Daniel, as if the dog has already decided this part is over. Ethan walks back toward the fence without looking behind him. He does not need to check if Daniel will follow. Some things do not require watching. They require trust that the truth will hold. As he steps back into his own yard, the air feels different. Lighter, somehow, even though nothing visible has changed yet. Margaret looks up as he approaches, her eyes searching his face for something she cannot name. Ethan slows as he reaches her, then kneels beside the chair again, the same way he did before, grounding himself in something real, something that cannot be taken away by words or documents or decisions made in quiet rooms. "It is going to be okay," he says softly. She studies him, then nods, not because she understands everything, but because she believes him. Rex settles at her feet, his body relaxing fully now, his head resting gently against her leg, the steady rhythm of his breathing anchoring the moment. Ethan reaches out and adjusts the blanket around her shoulders, the simple gesture carrying more meaning than anything else he could say. Around them, the neighborhood begins to wake. A car passes in the distance. A door closes somewhere down the street. Ordinary sounds returning to a place that had been holding its breath. Ethan sits there for a moment longer, his gaze lifting toward the house, toward the porch that once held years of quiet mornings just like this. It does not look the same anymore, but it does not feel lost either, because now it has been seen. And what has been seen can be restored. Not perfectly, not all at once, but enough. Enough to bring something back that should never have been taken. And in the stillness that follows, with the sun rising higher and the shadows pulling back from the edges of the yard, Ethan understands that coming home was never just about returning. It was about finding what was hidden, and choosing, quietly, to make it right. The light has shifted by the time Ethan finally stands again. No longer the pale edge of morning, but something warmer, fuller, settling across the porch and into the yard like a quiet promise that the day will continue whether they are ready or not. Margaret rests more easily now, her breathing steady, her hands no longer gripping the blanket as tightly, as if something inside her has loosened simply by not being alone anymore. Rex remains at her feet, still and watchful, but no longer tense, his presence now less like a guard and more like a companion who has chosen to stay. Ethan steps onto the porch slowly, his boots making that familiar hollow sound against the wood, a sound he has not heard in years but recognizes instantly. He pauses there, taking in the small details that once meant nothing and now feel like anchors. The worn railing, the faint mark on the doorframe where his height was measured when he was a kid, the old wind chime hanging near the corner, silent for now, but still there. Inside the house, the air is different. He pushes the door open again, this time stepping fully into the space, letting the light follow him in. Dust still lingers, but it no longer feels abandoned. Just waiting, waiting for movement, waiting for life to return. He walks through each room slowly, not searching anymore, but remembering. The kitchen where his mother used to stand every morning. The living room where the television would hum softly even when no one was watching. The hallway that always seemed longer when he was a child. Everything is still here. Nothing is truly gone. It has just been left untouched, like a story paused mid-sentence. Ethan stops near the small table by the window, where a stack of papers rests neatly, too neatly for something that was supposed to be forgotten. He picks them up, scanning just enough to understand. Names, signatures, transfers, lines drawn in ink that tried to rewrite something that was never theirs to take. He sets them back down carefully, not with anger, not with urgency, but with intention. This will be handled, not in haste, not in chaos, but properly. Outside, the faint sound of a car door closing carries through the open window. Ethan does not rush to look. He already knows. Some things do not need confirmation anymore. He steps back onto the porch, the sunlight stronger now, the shadows shorter. Margaret looks up at him, her eyes clearer than before, something steadier in them. "It feels different," she says softly. Ethan nods. "It is," he replies. He moves to sit beside her, not in front, not hovering, just there, sharing the space the way it was always meant to be. Rex lifts his head briefly, then settles again, his body relaxed, his breathing slow and even. For a while, none of them speak. They do not need to. The quiet now is not empty. It is full, full of presence, full of something that has returned without needing to be announced. A breeze moves through the yard, gentle, carrying the faint scent of grass and sun-warmed wood, brushing past them like something unseen acknowledging that the balance has been restored. Ethan leans back slightly, his gaze drifting out toward the street, toward the world that kept moving while this place stood still. "I should have come back sooner," he says after a while, his voice low, not filled with regret, but with truth. Margaret reaches out slowly, her hand finding his with a softness that feels both fragile and certain. "You came when it mattered," she says. Ethan looks at her, really looks this time, not at what was lost, but at what remains, at what can still be rebuilt. He nods once, a small movement, but enough. The wind chime stirs then, just slightly, a faint, delicate sound that had been silent for too long. Rex's ears flick toward it, then relax again. The house behind them stands quiet, but no longer distant. It feels closer now, lived in, even before a single thing has been moved or cleaned or repaired. Because presence changes a place faster than anything else. And as the morning settles fully into day, with the sun climbing higher and the shadows fading into something softer, Ethan understands that not every story ends with something loud. Some end like this, in stillness, in breath, in the quiet certainty that what was broken has begun, finally, to heal. A returning Marine and his loyal K-9 step back into a quiet neighborhood expecting peace. But what they find instead is a home filled with silence and a truth hidden in plain sight. In this deeply emotional narrative, the Marine uncovers that his elderly mother has been abandoned and quietly removed from her own life, setting the stage for one of the most powerful animal stories where loyalty, instinct, and quiet courage lead the way, as the K-9 senses what human eyes miss, guiding his partner. Through subtle clues and buried secrets, the story unfolds with tension and restraint, revealing how trust can be broken not by strangers, but by those closest to us. This is one of those unforgettable animal stories where the bond between a soldier and his dog becomes the bridge between confusion and clarity, between loss and restoration. As the Marine confronts the man responsible, there is no chaos, no violence. Only truth laid bare in silence, reminding us that justice does not always shout. Sometimes it simply stands still and refuses to move, through moments of quiet discovery and emotional weight. This story joins the most meaningful animal stories that highlight not only the intelligence of a German shepherd, but the unspoken understanding between human and animal that transcends words. The abandoned mother, once hidden and forgotten, is brought back into the light, not through force but through presence, dignity, and the unwavering loyalty of a K9 who never stopped listening. This is more than a reunion. It is a restoration of what should never have been taken, making it one of the most heartfelt animal stories that speaks to family, trust, and second chances. As the morning light returns and the home slowly breathes again, the Marine, his mother, and his faithful companion find something deeper than closure. They find grace in stillness, proving that even in the quietest moments, the strongest bonds endure, a theme that defines the most powerful animal stories and leaves a lasting impression long after the final word fades.